introduce today's sponsor, which is our community credit union. In 1941, new loggers were looking for loans that were being turned away by local banks. Union leaders recognized that need, and a short while later, our community credit union was established. Since then, many changes have occurred, growing to nearly 30,000 members, 8 branches across the peninsula. But their commitment to their members and their willingness to go the extra mile remains constant. OCCU is large enough to offer a wide variety of products and services, yet has not lost its purpose to provide personal, caring service to their membership. Please welcome our Community Credit Union's Mortgage Loan Officer, Renee West.
No.
Okay. So, I have to tell you, it's amazing to see everybody here today. And, you know, this is a really important topic for everybody here. And as today's sponsors, our community credit union understands the importance of community involvement, education, and working together with community partners and law enforcement to keep our community safe. For us and all of you, preparedness should be key. It doesn't matter the size of your business or the organization. What matters is that your continued effort and support in these types of events, you're all here because your community matters. Okay, that's why we're all here today. At our community credit union, our employees are our most valuable asset, and we want to make sure that all of our staff is prepared for the unexpected. When we hire our new employees, one of the first training topics we cover is security, robbery, and active shooter training. We also require all of our staff to go through the training annually. Basically, it's just a good reminder. In the credit union banking industry, or any industry that deals with cash, you know, we're at a higher risk for robbery. We look at awareness and preparedness as critical necessities to the safety of our staff and our members. So we ask that our staff be diligent in a lot of things, but here are just a few of them. You know, be aware of your surroundings. Whatever job or business you work at or belong to, always be aware. And then, you know, watching out for anything suspicious or out of the ordinary, and tell them. You know, we have our staff tell their supervisors or another coworker in the area. You know, one of the things that we did a couple of years ago that ties all of this into today's topic is we put together a poster on how to survive an active shooter. And what we did, we put these, you know, they're like the size of a poster, and we actually taped them. Sounds odd, but to the back of all the restroom stall doors. What better place to have some reading material? Okay? So, and as we've seen in the last several years and more recently, it doesn't matter what type of business, location, or number of employees you have, everybody is at risk. You know, Heidi mentioned how long we've been in business, you know, since 1941. And in those 78 years, the credit union has only been robbed 3 times. And that's 3 times too many. But for that period of time, I guess we should feel fortunate. And I will tell you that I've been an employee of the credit union for all 3 of those as they transpired. And so over the years, I have talked to the staff that were victims of the robberies, and they all say that the training and the preparedness, it really matters, and it makes a difference. Especially most recently, I'm sure you're aware that we had an incident at Steamboat. So, you know what, community is in our name, and as a member of this community, we want you all to be prepared. I mean, we all need to be prepared, we need to work together. So, thank you.
As I said, today's program is made possible from OCCU, so thank you again for your sponsorship. With that, what would you do if you came across an active shooter situation? One of the things that you'll learn today is to talk about exit routes, meeting places, contingency plans, and how to account for everyone. Today we'll hear from Shelton Police Department Chief Darrin Moody and Officer Paul Campbell as they walk us through what to do, what not to do, and how to call in emergency services in this situation. Before being sworn in as Shelton Police Department's Chief of Police in November of 2014, Darrin Moody served nearly 3 decades in California municipal law enforcement. He held many positions, including school resource officer, public information officer, detective, and SWAT team officer. He has a master's degree in Homeland Security and has organized and supervised many large-scale events and investigations. Officer Paul Campbell has been a police officer also for nearly 30 years, has served with the Shelton Police Department since 2000. He's worked as a detective, traffic accident investigator, field training officer, narcotics detective, and peer counselor. He's currently assigned as a school resource officer and instructor in active shooter response. And he's also a 6th degree black belt. Big round of applause for Chief Moody and Officer.
That's my instructions. Push. Perfect. Technology for me. Okay, thank you for having us out here. Paul and I have been doing this for quite a while, but to be honest with you, we're going to wing it a little bit today simply because I'm bad-mouthing Mike Fiola because he usually does this presentation, and he's in Yakima for the next 3 days. And he got a hold of us Thursday and said, hey, by the way, this thing's coming up. Yeah, he'll be working the graveyard next week. I don't know if you know, but when we, 3 years ago, Alex Apostle came into town. Alex Apostle and I met, and I said, you have no disaster preparedness for this type of situation at the schools. None. Within 3 or 4 months, we organized the entire staff in the school district and gave a complete presentation for about 6 hours with the whole staff of the Shelton School District. Since then, we started kind of a road show. We've gone to businesses, banks, schools, the chamber. I think the last time I spoke at a chamber thing, though, I was rapping with Melanie. So I'm not going to do any songs today. Heidi's banished me from doing that anymore. But it's interesting to talk to the folks around here, and you hear OCCU with the things. The bathroom idea, I can tell you where I used to work, we had Spanish for law enforcement from the urinals. And everybody ended up learning Spanish for law enforcement. It works. It works. It does. I was talking to the folks from the theater over here about what to do, what not to do. And one of the things we'll talk about here is things that have changed law enforcement since these things have become more and more prevalent. The sad part is this presentation is 2 to 3 years old, and it hasn't been updated, and it's a shame that we have to update it with everything that we need to put in it. That's occurred in the last 2 years, or the last year. One of the things I was talking to the theater folks about is there are 5 incidents that changed how law enforcement responds to active shooter incidents. Can anybody remember the first? There you go. Columbine. Surround, call, that's how we used to handle it. When Paul and I started, that's how we handled it. You surrounded it, you made everything safe around it, and you called out the big teams. Columbine changed that drastically. Columbine changed it so that we are the responders that are going to stop the threat. That's our job. The hard part for law enforcement, and we'll talk about it, was we were taught no more medical. You just get in there and stop that threat. And it's hard. You're running through a crowd, people are screaming, people are down. If I don't stop that threat, it's going to keep going. Columbine was the first. Another one, Fort Hood, open area engagement. In the past, it was all in a confined area. We could go in and search through buildings. Law enforcement then had to change it. What do you do with an open area in Fort Hood? In the theaters in Aurora, Colorado. Changed it again. Because we were taught again, no medical. You're not going to provide medical for anybody. Too much liability, they said. You can't put tourniquets on people. You're not trained in how to do it. I had the fortunate experience of talking to people from Aurora, Colorado during debriefing of the theater. That changed it. We now carry tourniquets. That's new. That's all new to us. We always said, we don't provide medical. We got CPR at best. Now it's combat readiness, combat training, and combat field dressing. 30 years ago, we didn't have any of that. None of it. So those are some of the things that changed and evolved as we move forward in this. It was interesting to listen to, the businesses. A majority of these things are happening at businesses. People say, oh, worry about the schools. Yes, the schools are a significant threat. Businesses is where it's happening. Most of it where they work, or family members work, or friends work. So we're going to start going through the slides. We're going to ad-lib a little bit. If you got questions about one specific thing that comes up here, don't be afraid, go for it. But if you've got just general questions, we'll wait to the end and we'll field as many as we can before we get through it. Active shooter. So now we come into definitions, unfortunately, of active shooter and mass shooter. Active shooter. Basically, it's kill as many as possible, go in with an idea of this is how it's going to go. Now they've added the definition of mass shooter. Mass shooter is now more than 4 victims. Anybody more than 4 victims, you're classified as a mass shooter. So, as you can see, Mike did update it. All right. He might not be great, but he might be swing shift.
Maybe swing shift. I would say now we can swing shift. On weekends.
Yes. You know, as you can see, and you know, as we go through this, it's unfortunate that we have to learn all of these things, but the really good thing about, and I'll use Alex again as an example, is I said, when I was in school, how many of you remember the earthquake drills? I was a California kid. You know, what'd you do? Crawl under a desk. Like that desk was really going to save you during an earthquake. But that's what they taught you. Hunker down under there. Why are we not teaching our kids how to deal with this? They're a lot smarter than we're giving them credit for. They already know it. So let's teach them how to deal with it.
Can everybody hear me? I got a louder voice than the chief does. Awesome, you can have that. I'll just tell you after without the mic. So as she loads up, Parkland, Virginia Tech. Everybody remember Virginia Tech? Holy. Oh my God! So regarding Parkland and Virginia Tech, that changed how we also approach things. Because now you had Cho, Virginia Tech, walks in, kills 43, 2-handed. We all talk about assault rifles, if you want to use that definition of rifles, we're all big about banning those. But he killed 43 with just 2 handguns. And remember drills, lockdown, lock in place? Those have evolved now into programs like I'm chained in called Alice, which is alert, lockdown, inform. You know, we want to get those out there. Now you have to engage, and then it's about escape. You know, and these are what's changing the evolution. You know, it's no longer just lock in place. You can get in, get out, go. You know, and I'll get more into that a little bit later. And C's counter, by the way, because
This was another one that changes how we evolve. Virginia Tech sniper situation. This one very similar. It didn't take them very long. People, oh my gosh, it took forever for them to get to them. If you really look at the timeline of this, it was pretty quick. But typical of most of these, the person that goes in to commit these crimes has no intention of leaving. That's the reality. They know that they are probably not going to leave that situation. And in a good portion, we'll get into it a little bit later too, is I think it's as of 2017, 20 to 25% of them were engaged in police gunfire and ended. 20% of them were civilians that ended. And by ended it, it doesn't necessarily mean carrying a gun. I don't want to get into the gun debate out here. Casey Salisbury's good enough at that, I don't need to do it. So, but what you'll talk about is the run, hide, fight. Up to 20% of them in the last several years were solved with civilians on scene.
just engaging.
That ended the situation. And I know if you've heard the presentation with Mike before, he'll talk about this. I'll let Paul go in on this one.
So when I was a detective, I actually am very proud of this because he came up from California. He was a tough interview. I won't get into the background, but he committed some sex crimes as well. But in the end, he knew it was coming. I won't say because of my case or Shelton PD's case, but he knew that the sex crime I was investigating was coming to the end. And so this, I think, was just his last hoorah. And so he goes in, goes to rob, and there's a little bit of a standoff. And he, like you said, he wanted to kill as many as possible just to get back at society. I'll just leave it at that. I can go on and on. But he came up from California, like I said. I can't remember how many years in Chino. He was a tough interview because obviously he knows law enforcement, he knows how the game's going to get played. But I had to have some fun with it.
So, you know, these are the, oh, it's not going to happen here. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And this was when. He purchased a bomb to blow up in front of Walmart. Unfortunately, he purchased the bomb from undercover agents. But he was going through with it. He pushed the button. He was ready to go. This is here in tiny little Shelton when he pulls up the AMP and says, I want to put it in front of Walmart and blow it up. Whoops. Is that a video?
It's going to be called up.
Again, this was kind of the, I guess you could say, the tipping point for law enforcement.
Jefferson County 911. Yes, I just called about High 6. There is a student here with a gun. He was shot out.
So as we listen to this and we start to learn from these things, she's heard saying over and over again, get under the table, get away, under the table, get down. Today, what would we be telling them?
Absolutely.
Get out.
Absolutely.
Get out. And that's, if you look at, again, to study these things and look at these in and out, they don't intend on, most of them don't intend on leaving. Very few have ever left the scene. The other part of that is they wanted easy targets. And they're not going to chase you off, generally. They're not going to chase you off. And so what we told the schools, we had reunification points set up at the schools. Because I've been involved in incidents, and Paul's been involved in before, and I'll tell you, usually it's not the kids, no offense, but it's the parents that are the worst to deal with when something happens at the schools. I'm a parent, I know, Paul's a parent. I want to respond to that school and save my kid. The reality is you're going to cause more damage going to that school and trying to save that kid than you are if you just make arrangements with your kids now. Make arrangements with your business staff. If we leave, where do we go? Where are we going to meet? Yeah, point 1, point 2. This is where we're going to go. And what we've tried to instill in the parents, and Alex and I are still evolving on how we're going to do this without getting railed by the parents, is we don't want you at the school. We want you here because you're going to have 100 to 200 kids running it. I want people to go out there who know these kids are, take roll. Who are the kids? How many we got? How many we missing? That's the role the parents should be playing in this. That's the role the businesses should be playing in this. When you've got to exit your business, you have an emergency plan. Just talking to the theaters about this. You know, and some of it's going to be on the fly that you're making these plans. But I told the theater, if I'm standing in the theater and I've got 2 or 3 folks with me as staff, and I know I got full theater behind me, and I see something coming in that door, at least 2 of those staff should be getting into that theater and saying, we have an emergency, need you to exit.
It's better to have a plan in place and then not, and practice that plan, and then have that plan start to go bad and have to adapt to it, because at least you have a roadway to go down. If you don't, then you got a wall. You know, you have to also understand in this room, it doesn't matter who you are, there are some people in life that just aren't prepared to protect themselves or others. That's just who they are. It's not a weakness, it's just who they are. So you have to put those people in place. Who's going to get them moving, if you can? Because that could become a wall or a barrier that you have to now deal with too. That's something we call condition black, but someone who's no longer able to think or function for themselves.
If you think about it, practice it during the most inopportune time. When I got here, one of our staff, I said, okay, when's our next range day where we're going to go out and work on, you know, pistol qualifications and range? Well, Chief, honestly, we usually wait till about June or July when the weather gets better and we go out and qualify once a year. I said, yeah, the odds are pretty good in Washington. It's never going to be raining when we're out involved in something like that, right? So now we go out 3 or 4 times a year, well, more than that now, and we practice when it's raining, when it's cloudy, when it's dark, when it's sunny. You know, the odds are very good that something's going to happen in Washington. You're going to have to exit this building when it's raining or snowing. And then what are you going to do? Then where are your positions going to be? So you start thinking about all those things. Again, we talked earlier about, here's our priorities. We preserve life by stopping the threat. I had somebody just the other night at a council meeting contact me and say, so, when you're training, you teach them to shoot in the leg and wound them. You teach them to shoot in the arm and wound them. And then they're turning, isn't it horrible to shoot to kill? That's not the terminology we use. We stop the threat. In fact, years ago we talked about the pelvic region being a good place to shoot people. Because if you can take out a hip, they're down. And that's what we use. We stop the threat, whatever that means. Identify other threats, bombs, hazards, etc., and render first aid to victims, and preserve the crime scene. In that order is generally how it's going to be handled. We're now experimenting in law enforcement around the country with hot zone, warm zone. Fire departments becoming involved as rescues. And we've talked here about that. Usually it becomes a money issue more than it becomes anything else. Providing vests, helmets, etc. for the fire department. And then if you have enough staff, Paul and I go in to stop the threat in this place. And behind us, we know the threat's there. Behind us is another team escorting the fire department and rescue personnel will start scooping them up.
It's a different mindset, especially for law enforcement, because before, remember, when Darrin and I were trained, stop and wait. Now I'm teaching officers, complete opposite, we were trained, and that is to go into the closed door. Before we'd stop, get someone to negotiate. These guys don't negotiate anymore. You got to have a completely different mindset in law enforcement. Are you able to go through that door and engage 2, 1, 3, 5 suspects and eliminate the threat, knowing that it may be a one-way door for you? So it's a different mindset. And we're training in that now for officers.
We just did a training a month ago during break for the kids. We used the school. And it was great because we used a bunch of the high school kids that were in the drama program, and those folks are good actors. And for the older folks that are officers, it was more difficult to run through that crowd and be able to, rather than take an angle, take up your position. The best officers out there were the younger officers and video game players. And that's the flip side, because you look at some of the studies on these, and they're saying this person played video games nonstop all day long. I'm not here to get into debates on video games, but it's a heck of a lot easier to point a gun and shoot at a video game, and then to take that and transfer it over to what you're doing out there.
You just where the lack of better words, I'm not going to give them all names, they don't deserve it, but with the suspects, how they killed, or how they shot people, you can tell they played video games. That was part of the analysis that they did, because most of us were trained center mass, and these guys weren't doing center masses. They were almost always doing headshots. Always.
What we did in our training with the schools is, again, play like you're going to be real life. We sent officers out there, we put a radio in their hand, we said, here's your call. And they didn't expect it. They didn't know what was coming until later on in the day they started to figure this out. We had 30 kids rushing at them, screaming and yelling. And they've got to weed their way through this, find the threat, and deal with the threat. And thanks to Sierra Pacific, we got munitions guns this year. And similar to old paintball guns or the marker guns, and if you think those things don't sting when they hit you, so that it adds that adrenaline level a little bit higher than just going in there with your fake gun and walking through there and making, you're getting shot at by the threat. Yeah, we had guys leaving, and gals, leaving with welts all over their body, but you learn from it.
And it seems like it's an easy thing, but locate and engage, like I said, it's just that mindset. You know there are people down, you know there's officers down, we played that scenario as well. Now these officers haven't run with an officer who's down. Bypassing your buddy, because the threat needs to be eliminated and engaged.
So this last one has BaseCom on there. Usually we have somebody from BaseCom, but they weren't available for this one. So let me give you some of the things that go on in BaseCom. Usually they have 3 dispatchers in there. One will be taking calls, one will be dispatching fire, one will be dispatching police. And when I say police, it's the whole county that they're dispatching. What people need to understand is, I get it, the adrenaline's high, and we hear it all the time. You need to just get here now, quit asking me questions. You need to just get here now, quit asking me questions. Those questions are what makes our job to eliminate that threat easier. The best thing you can do in training business employees for everything, from the OCC robberies to anything else, look at them. And again, you know who gives the best descriptions? Young people. Because they look at style. They look at clothes. They'll know what color shoes they have on. They'll know the fancy hat they've got on. But teach your employees. Scan them head to toe. That's what you need to do. I don't need to know, you know, how evil this person is or what they're yelling at you. I need to know they're wearing a purple sweater, they're wearing black shoes, they're wearing black pants, and they're about this old, and this is what the hair looks like. We need descriptions. That's why, you know, it's always good to have, the old 7-Elevens had the, you remember, the markers up there, so when they walked out the door, you knew exactly how tall they were, or pretty darn close.
Businesses are the number one, schools are number two.
And out of the businesses, the statistics are coming out now say 80% of them were at work. So they either work there, family work there, friend work there, something affiliated with that business. And unfortunately, it's now reached police department levels. We've had a couple of these incidents that have occurred where they've taken over police departments. And there was, I think, 2 or 3 last year where they literally walked in police departments and started firing.
And as it goes through these, we have to understand that most of these incidents are over within 3, I think now it's 3 to 6. It used to be 3 to 11 minutes, 3 to 6. To know where your business is, first, how long do you think the average time for a law enforcement officer to get to some of these businesses are? Sometimes, what, 8 to 16, I think it is? It's almost double. That's why the engagement, now, like I say, part of the training that I'm getting, that the department's training me on, is teaching, become instructor on how to engage, how to teach departments, how to teach businesses, how to engage them. You know, because it's scary to think that one of you could save everybody else in here. And that's why I say society has this different mindset.
The background checks, and as you know, there's all kinds of different legislation going through what we're going to do with background checks now, how they're supposed to improve and change. And I can tell you, even in Shelton here, I was shocked when I got to Washington with a few things. One of those things is it's a shall issue state versus a may issue state. In California, not everybody can get a concealed weapons permit. It's up to the individual sheriff and police chief of that jurisdiction. And you would usually call people in, why do you need a concealed weapon? Well, I run a business where I'm transporting money, or I'm doing this. And here, the first one that came across my desk to sign for a concealed weapon, Sarah, I don't even know, she works up front in our office, came in and gave me this, and I said, well, give me the phone number, I'm going to call and find out why. She laughed and said, you can't. If they pass all of these things and meet all the criteria, it's a shall issue state. Well, last week we had a guy come in who says, I deserve a concealed weapons permit because I had my conviction vacated. And so we went back and forth. We sent it to our attorneys because I said, I'm not giving you a weapons permit. He said, look, the conviction's gone. It's vacated. So these are all the things that legislation doesn't think of when they start writing these. And I said, I'm not giving you one. And next thing I know, I'm getting a call from an attorney telling me they're going to sue me. And I said, look, you can walk over to the sheriff's office. If he wants to give you one, he can. But I'm not. Because I get these executive research forum stuff once a week that comes through. And inevitably, there's this person shouldn't have had a firearm when they got it, and here's what occurred because of it. And I told him, go ahead and sue me. I'd rather be the chief that gets sued because I didn't give somebody a concealed weapons permit than the chief who gets sued because he did, and people died because of it. Okay, MACECOM. So, to give you an example of the volume that comes through MACECOM, our officers alone last year handled over 13,000 calls for service. That's 2 to 3 officers working patrol on any given shift. 13,000. Mason County, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 for the county. So the calls that come through, the volume is incredible. And it's not just on emergencies. When the snowstorm came, can you tell me if this road's open? Can you tell me if that road's open? Can you give me the phone number to call for this? Can you give me the phone number to call for that? You know, when's PUD going to get the power back? You know, yeah. 911 gets used for a variety of things, so it gets overloaded. But understand that sometimes you will call, and it's a lot of the emergency times you will call. Traffic accidents are a prime example. People will call and say, there's an accident at 7th and Railroad. And they'll tell you, yes, we already got the call, thank you very much. And they'll hang up on you because they have such a load of calls coming in on that same incident that they're going to go with the one that's got the most information. Here's the easiest, and again, employee checklist, you talked about it. What are they going to need when they call? They want to know where you're at. They want to know where the suspect's at, what he looks like, what kinds of weapons they've got, number of potential victims, what'd you hear, and if you know who is the suspect.
So this goes back to what we were saying, you gotta practice, practice, practice. It's better practice a plan and have it go bad than not practice at all. You know, it's just like this room right now. You started hearing shots fired, what are you gonna do? Is a threat right in this room right now? Maybe it's out in the hallway. You gonna go out in the hallway? Probably not. We all can't fit out that door because we get trampled on, but you have 2 exits minimum that you can get out. Like I say, some people be disabled. You're gonna let them leave? It's a choice. You know, you have to deal with that too. Because that may be the obstacle. That disabled person might be put in that exit. So it's just something you have to put into your plan and think about.
And train to your lowest common denominator. We talk to the teachers quite often, and dealing with the high school teachers and junior high is drastically different than dealing with the teachers with the kindergartners and the first graders. How am I going to get 25-year-olds outside of this place? And they come up with some great ideas. Now they have a rope in one of the classrooms with a bunch of knots on it. Grab a knot. There's a teacher in front, and a teacher in back, and here we go. Just hold on to the rope.
I think the high school can be evacuated in less than 11 minutes, and that's almost 25 students. So, practice, practice, practice. That's
Yeah,
huge.
in fact, if you leave here and OMS, if you leave here and see a bunch of kids running out of OMS, there's a lockdown drill. Okay?
So they've evolved on that. This was the first one, run, hide, fight. And it's kind of the same thing as all the training. There's never just one perfect answer. This is one good training, but there's multitudes out there.
This is a perfect video to show an employee orientation.
The whole purpose is to survive. That's the whole goal.
The flowers are better, Peter. A little peacefulness. We talked about the run, hide, fight. How many of you remember the Walmart shooting in Tumwater? What was that, a year ago? A year plus ago? Again, 20% of the incidents are committed by a civilian. Guy goes into Walmart, starts opening fire, police get the 911 calls. Before Tumwater PD can get there, the guy gets shot in the parking lot, I think by a pastor.
He was by the
We're going to talk. I don't know how
And
to
interestingly, he went into Walmart to get more bullets. That's what he went to Walmart for, to get more ammo.
If you shop on Amazon, you should use Wikibuy. It's a browser extension that
We're going to pause for a brief moment from the sponsors.
It may feel like just another day at the office.
But occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Why they reset that, but a lot of programs where a lot of things don't talk about it. Once law enforcement shows up, what do? Obviously what Chief Moody said, yeah, they're gonna run at you. Get that cell phone, put it away please. Empty hands, I don't care if your hands are up, or hands are out, or hands down. I'm scanning you as quick as I can, especially when you got 40, 20, 10 people running at me as I'm trained to go in. I'm scanning real quick, I'm trying to process as many people as I can as I go by. And if you have that cell phone in your hand, which everybody usually does, which I try to teach these kids at the schools, you got to put it someplace else on. You know, they say this way, that way. I just want your hands empty. As I'm running, because you're going to come, you're going like this. I can process, and that's what we're teaching these other officers. You know, and when you get there, respect that that officer's mindset is in a different place right now. He's going after a threat to eliminate a threat. He's not there to say hi, so he may not be necessarily always respectful. He may be at a high state of adrenaline, and so it may seem like he's being rude or disrespectful, but understand he has a process going on in his head. He's hearing things. He's trying to process, is it a gun? Do I know the gun? How many rounds? Like the shotgun? I know that shotgun. He knows the sound of a shotgun. He has 7 to 9 rounds. So if I'm counting rounds, we're at that 9, I have a small window that I think I can engage this person. Okay? Even though you may have a secondary thing. I'm not telling you guys what you guys do, but you just count the rounds, count the things.
You notice that they had the 4 officers. That's a diamond formation that we train with, 1 in the back. We've now gone to, and Paul was one of the, and I was an instructor, single officer response and 2 officer response. Because the odds are, here in Shelton, on any given time, you may only get 2 officers there immediately. You may get 1. But the flip side of that is, as we saw in Belfair last year, when they thought they had an incident at the school, and they ended up with 75 officers there from Kitsap, Mason, Thurston, and they all came. Because officers self-dispatch, and we tell them all the time, don't do that. But when they hear the call, they come. So here, luckily, the line level officers all have a great relationship with Mason County, Fish and Game, WSP, and all of those folks, to where they know when they get there, this is what we're going to do. Because that's the reality of the situation where we live here, is you're going to get up to 4 or 5 agencies quick in any of these incidents. And they're not just going to be Shelton, but they've all been trained, and they all understand what's going to go on when this happens. Of course, they're all going to leave and say, you guys take the report. But
Exactly. And another thing when we did our active shooter at the school, we took away the rifle, by the way. We took that out because everybody changed with the rifle. They don't always train the active shooters with a handgun. I'm at the schools. I'm not always in my car. I police 2 schools, so I walk between 2 schools. I'm not going to run back to my car to go get a long rifle to engage someone with a long rifle. I'm going to go with my handgun. So the officers had to fight through that because they know the person by the sound that they're engaging that is not probably a handgun. So they're going to have twice as many rounds on them, allegedly, longer distance. And so we took that away from them just to challenge them a little bit more. You're going to engage. In fact, I think the chief, Mike, and I were the only 3 that knew what the whole plans were. We gave 8 scenarios. And they had to fight through all that with a handgun, with whatever. I carried X amount of magazines, or clip and magazines, and someone carried 2. So they had to fight through that with multiple times.
And that's where they learn from it. The officers, some people say, why do they carry so many magazines? Why do they carry so many rounds? We're not going back to our car. You know, when he's walking the campus, he's out there at the campus by himself. And so when this thing happens, he's not going to go, okay, check out, let me go back to my car, get everything I need to come back in. And that's teaching with the teachers out there, instructing them. You know, they were going, we don't have weapons in our classrooms. Do you got a fire extinguisher? Those are an awesome weapon. Either to clock somebody with it, or to spray it. It's a great weapon. And you look around this room, and I get it, it's a dining room. There are weapons all over the place around here that when your adrenaline gets up, you can use. And that's exactly what you need to be doing. Thinking about those things. Officers do it just because we've done it forever. My wife hates it because I will be sitting there scanning something or looking at something, and she goes, will you quit looking around for something bad to happen? There are decent people out there. You know, but you know, that's what we do. We sit at stoplights and we're going, okay, if this happens, what's going to happen right now? And that's what we do over and over and over again.
And they know when our body meter changes. I'll be holding my wife's hand, and all of a sudden I'll drop her hand and just walk off. She's used to it now, after 32 years. My daughter was 13. I've never called her by her name in public. I have 2 nicknames for her. We go to Starbucks to get coffee. What's your name? They don't get my name, they don't get her name. I said, pick a name. They don't care. Because I don't want somebody else to call out her name because she'll know that's an odd request. I'm a unique individual. Not very unique, not very good. I'll go to a restaurant, you know, and I'll look at it, whatever restaurant it is, it's packed. And I'll go, I don't want this seat. I want that seat. It'll be another 20 minutes. I'll wait for 20 minutes, I'll hold it. My family's used to that, you know, because in all reality, I'm not being selfish, but when I'm with my family, they come first, you know, and then I worry about society. After that, then it's society, so I'm by myself.
So, questions? Fire away. And they don't have to be related to this. It helps, but they don't have to be related to this. It can be anything you want of why we do what we do or anything along those lines. Yes, ma'am?
What's your opinion on multi-story buildings and entrances? For, say, a bank, do you prefer to exceed at the banks and force a single entry employee entrance, or for the use multiple entries to get in?
So, similar to our building at the Civic Center. So you got a buzz to get in or have a code to get into those entrances. And now you got the cards. I think those are awesome. Hint, hint, city manager. I think those are awesome for employee entrances. I think multiple entrances is great for employees. If you got to get out, you want multiple ways to get out.
Yes, to get out, I see.
Public?
Going out, but to come into the building.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I just had a conversation with the folks who run Quixote Village over in Olympia, and design and how they do it and what they ask for safety opinions. And I said, you need 2 doors. You need a door to get into the front and a door to be buzzed into the rest. So, I mean, as many barriers as you can put, it sounds horrible, but the more barriers you put before the Joe public can just walk in there and walk through your place. We did it at the Civic Center 2 years ago. We had our finance department sitting upstairs, open air, where anybody could walk into the finance department any given day. And this is not good. You know, people are going to get the illusion we have money. And
It's like safety through environmental design. You know, it's designing a building for safety. You look at Target, you look at any big business, they have these beautiful planters out here, some beautiful landscaping, and walls are there for a purpose. Not just to look pretty, to keep things from coming in, you know, to keep things to slow down traffic. When you enter in a building, it's nice to have this open concept. That's great. But at the same time, by the time you get to employees, you should also have some barriers going now. Make them go around. You're trying to slow down that direct path, right? That's the way to anything. You make them have to skip it. And then you can be able to move it around, to be that rich in your business, be able to move it around like Google. You know, they move this stuff around a lot.
Paul's also an instructor in what's called Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, SEPTED. If any of you have businesses and you'd like us to come out and do an inspection, it doesn't hold you to anything. It's simply a report that we give you as a business. People, trim your trees up, trim your bushes down. Where should you put lighting? Where should you put cameras? I'm amazed to this day how many businesses do not have cameras, and they are so cheap now and easy. I mean, we met the manufacturer, the owner, the guy who invented the Ring doorbell, and it's incredible to me. The cost is so low, and you can see it at your door. I got guys at work that we got some samples from the guy. They're cracking me up at work. Look, I just got a delivery. Here it is. This person was at my front door. But for businesses-wise, cameras, you know, it used to be you put cameras up for what? Employee theft. You know? So that's still there. But I'm telling you, the price of them has gone down. The quality has gone up. You know, our graffiti artists downtown over the last weekend, yeah. There's cameras in the back alley, and I'm going to tell you because I'm shaming him. He put them up, and he goes, I don't want to put up the real cameras, so I'll put some fake cameras behind my business. Really? You probably pay as much for those fake cameras as you did for the real cameras. But we do, and we solve a lot of crimes with those videos. We got our Domino's guy on video. You know, we will solve crimes using that. You will also rest easier knowing you got cameras at your business and lighting. So if anybody have any of that ideas of your businesses, hey, come out. He'll do a report, send you the report, and say, here it is. This is the things I think you should do to improve the safety around your business.
And look at what Walmart's done. Walmart, I think, had the highest retail theft in America or worldwide. And what have they done in the last year, if you guys noticed? Put a greeter out. It's amazing how it'll change someone's day who wants to be angry, mad, to say, hey, how's it going? Hi, welcome to Walmart. Hi, welcome to whatever business you're in. Just engaging them can throw them completely off. You know, you have to think of it. They're going to shoot you, they're going to shoot you right then and there. That's why I never sit at the front of the restaurant. You know? Go ahead.
What do we do if somebody's angry? I mean, at what point do we have to worry that an angry person is going to come back? Is there, I mean, unless they say something very directly as a threat, we're not going to call you, but is there, I mean, we try de-escalation techniques, we try all this stuff, but, you know, we had a guy last week and he's really, really angry that we trespassed him. So, you know, where do we start?
As officers, I'll tell you what we use. When the hair on the back of your neck stands up and he goes, I'm not comfortable, that's when you call.
Okay.
And he's already been trespassed, you know that. If you're aware of that. Him just coming in, it's a time to call.
It was a phone call, so I'm concerned if he comes in again with that level.
So we can always do, I get angry with people at my poor buses because they block my roads. I have to do a thing with parents all the time. You know, you call them up, and just that knowledge of an officer. It could just be a welfare check or a phone call request. And call them and say, hey, this guy can trespass, because then there's other things you can do through the courts to get him not to have that phone call.
And like us, you know who the frequent flyers are.
Yes.
You know who the people
We know
that come
the
to.
same people.
Yes, who come here all the time.
There's
You know
ways
who-
we could do it.
You know, there's certain times, there's a guy in town that is recently in town, and literally the other day, I met him at the coffee shop downtown, and he got in my face and said something not very polite. And I told him, look, you can do what you want right now, but in about 2 minutes, if I get on the radio, there's going to be about 10 of them over here piling on you, so it wouldn't be a good idea. And literally the next day, the call comes across on the radio that says, so-and-so's at this coffee shop again. and he's yelling at the patrons. And I knew right there, I said, this is not going to end well. When the hair in the back of your neck stands up and you're going, I'm not comfortable, that's when you call. And have somebody else with you if you can. Because you always want to witness, because there's going to be those people who say, oh my gosh, she put her hands on my poor baby. My poor innocent child, or I didn't do anything. So, no questions? We're all safe and happy now?
And I'll just, go ahead.
Do you guys offer to come into people's businesses and walk through like an active shooter situation, help identify like where?
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like we do SEPTED, we've done, I think we did it at the banks, at credit unions. Absolutely, we can come in, even if it's new businesses. At the brewery would be great. After 5 o'clock.
We have some great specialized officers. Like I said, my training's a lot different than Mike's training, but Mike's training and my training coincide real well. And that's why we usually put on a lot of things together here in the last couple of years. But like I said, when it comes to active shooters, just be aware of your surroundings. You know, be ready to run, be ready to fight. You know, and please show up, just make sure that they see your hands, cooperate with them. If you're injured, you know, just work it out. But, you know, at some point in this day and age, it's hard to say, hey, citizens, you might have to engage. And just remember, don't quote the person who goes to black. Don't hate them because they couldn't fight. Don't do that to them. They're going to be messed up in the head enough if it happens. They're just not designed. And that's why I tell people. And that's why one of the reasons I became a cop, because not everybody is able to defend themselves. They need people who are able to do that. I know cops who got out of the academy, got in that first incident with the gun being pulled on them, and they're out. Then I know others like, dude, I'm good. I'm a junkie on it. Now I want more guns pulled on me.
So even the new businesses, old businesses, I tell it's the same thing I would say to schools. Don't be afraid to give the information to your employees. You know, their parents are worried that we're going to go out there and show these to these kids and teach them. They already know, okay? The 12-year-old already knows what's going on out there. And with the business is the same way. Yeah, when your employees get a little shock value in this and go, oh my gosh, a little bit of panic just set in of what can happen in my business, yeah. But they're also going to feel a little better about knowing the process to what happens. What happens when I call 911? Who's coming when I call 911? It helps them go, okay, I understand it a little better, put a face to what's going on here.
And we can take these programs. We don't have to spend an hour, because I know a lot of businesses are small starting out. You may not have a lot of money, but you may have 30 minutes on a weekend. We can make that happen. We can put something together, even just a real quick talk, you know, about either Alice or how you fight or something like that. It can be done. We can go with the guy's budget.
Can you talk a little bit more? You said Alice several times
Okay.
now, and I'm not familiar with it. I'm really
Okay,
very familiar
so
with
Alice, so after Virginia Tech, I don't know if you guys know the whole story, but there was a gentleman who came in, shot many people. They were trained in the lockdown method. They just locked the door, or didn't lock the door, unfortunately, in a few of these classrooms. So the suspect just went into each one as they were just huddled down and started shooting. But there was, and I'm going to lose my sleep tonight because the Holocaust survivor is the one that saved about 13 students. So what his plan was that on the second story, he basically, him and 2 other students who did pass in his classroom, held the door shut while he was jumping out the window. So this is what now we've evolved into a state. So Alice is, you know, be alert, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware who's coming in and out of your businesses, your restaurants that you're eating.
A-L-I-C-E.
Yep, A-L-I-C-E. Lockdown, you basically lock in place, you can't get out, be quiet. And then, dang eye. And then so,
It'll come to you tonight. I got it. That's a test.
darn it, see, it's always that one. Last time it was C, it was counted. Anyways, engage. It'll be that. And then, go ahead.
How do you control the situation if you got a screamer in the middle of your business?
So, again, there's what they'll show you on TV, and then what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you this. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to survive the world. I'm not saying show them. But sometimes you might have to muffle them. You might have to try to calm them, de-escalate them. You might have 4 people in the room, and one person's or 2 people's job is to calm that person down to get them to be quiet. Okay? And the other 2 have to defend the door. You got to come up with a quick plan. You know? But then again, you can't fault this person for who they are. That's just their makeup and design.
And if you've got to get out and that's happening, there's 2 options you've got. One of them was mentioned earlier. I don't care if you're evacuating or not, I'm leaving.
Yeah, Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I'm dragging you with me.
Yeah. Still speak. You've got-
Yeah, they're gonna scream, that's fine, scream on the way, I'm dragging you.
And I is informed. I is informed. Bam! Now, so what it did, it took run, hide, fight at Virginia Tech. It took run, hide, fight, and it advanced it into the evolution of you have to engage, you have to counter, you have to fight, or evacuate.
You got one more?
I just have one quick one. So a lot of us have front office people, or people, maybe we are front office people. What's one thing that you would recommend that we tell them when we go back to the office? If there's one takeaway from all this, you know?
There's a lot of takeaways, that's
I know.
all. Well, the one is, know what happens when you call 911. When you're gonna call 911, in order, what do I want? I want a description, I want to know where you're at. And I want to know a description, and I want to know what's going on. Boom, boom, boom. You know, and you can print stuff out like that and put it right up there. So when they're on the phone, they're looking directly at that list going, okay, what are you wearing? Okay, you know, things like that. The other I tell people is, people talk about weapons at the front desk and things like that. Gun debates is a whole nother ballgame. But what I will say is this. We have a guy that walks to work every day at the city. How many of you know Jason Dose? Great guy. He walks to work every day and picks up garbage on his way to work. That's what a cool guy he is. Jason got attacked by some dogs on his way to work one day. I gave him OC spray. And I said, here you go, I'll teach you how to use it. Just don't spray it in the wind.
Right.
But things like that are perfectly legal. So, you know, I gave it to my daughter when she started driving and told her, put it in your glove box. So, you know, these are things, I know we don't want to arm our employees, but, I mean, it's a simple thing, like you said. If I've got somebody at the front counter and they're about to come over the counter, and the best thing I can do is take a shh. You know, that's abusing into business, but those are some easy options.
Or a taser.
I like pepper spray, because it's over in 5
I'm
seconds.
surprised how many
Pepper spray goes like 24 hours, man. When you shower, runs right
We
in.
have officers that taste themselves, so be careful with the little taser.
Can I get another round of applause for? At this time, we have a door prize. Dylan has the box. Has everybody put their business card or their name in the box already? Yeah, he's got some slips if you need to put your name on it. No? Okay. So again, thanks to OCCU for sponsoring today's event. And we will draw for staff is not allowed to enter. Jeff Knighton.
Oh.
So just a couple of things before we get you out of here. The Chamber is hosting a Google live stream on refreshing your website on Wednesday, March 6th. It's at 9 a.m. at the Chamber Conference Room. Google sends out a lot of information as far as they change things. How do you clean up your website? How do you stay up to date in the SEO? And make sure that you're still a search-friendly site. Business After Hours at Maple Glen on Wednesday, March 13th at 5:30. And then next month, our Chamber Luncheon is the Land, Sea, Sky Chamber Luncheon. So we'll have people from Skydive Kapowsin, the Salmon Center, and National Park Service to give an update on recreational activities in Mason County. So thank you again to everyone for joining us. We'll have this up online as well as Mason Web TV. Today is Harrier streaming it, and we'll have that video of today's event also. So, but if you need anything further, feel free to give us a call. And again, just one last round of applause for OCCU. And
Other people like to use code words, you know, for certain, like code red or whatever for your businesses. With people, you don't train that way a lot. So my suggestion is don't use code words. Speak plain English. And that way, when your employees have to get in panic, they know what's what. Just do plain English. Don't use code words.
thank you.